Okay, so let's carry on here. Before I demonstrate the codes, I want to talk about two things before I demonstrate the codes, okay? I want to talk about assignment 2. I know that we are not even done with assignment 1, but hey, I'm going to talk about assignment 2. And I want to talk about what we're going to be doing for next class, okay? So I'll just briefly jump to that before we get this. Okay, so assignment 1, just a quick reminder. You all know that. Again, I'm helping some of you with your questions. If you have more questions, we may have time a little bit towards the end, so you can ask more. Assignment 2, the details are already available on Centennial under assignments. So if you go there, and if you go to contents, and if you go to assignments, you're going to see assignment 2 here. Normally, assignments would be 3 weeks, every 3 weeks. But if we put this 3 weeks, it would end up in the reading week. So I pushed 1 more week. So you're going to have 4 weeks to do assignment 2. So by Saturday, November 2nd. Again, we are beginning of October, so you have 4 weeks to do that. What is the idea here? The idea is that you can get what you did for assignment 1 and now make it more dynamic. The data now, what you have always been asking me is, should I save this, should I save that? Is it dynamic? Yes, now it's a big yes, okay? So now we're going to be doing dynamic information. Now, few details here. The first one is that it requires you to create a partial view. Partial view you did not see yet, but you're going to see that in a week, okay? It's a very simple concept, but that's the only topic that you have not seen yet is partial view. Again, you're going to see that next week. The other points are very straightforward. You can always ask me questions about them, but again, now we're going to make things dynamic. There's no hard coding in the HTML anymore. Now we're going to be saving when we add a recipe, we save it. Now, I'm going to repeat the next statement 3 times here. This will not save data in the database. It will save data in memory only, okay? Which approach do you use just to store data in memory? Which type of collection do you use? A fake type, which can be what? It's behind the scenes, it's a list, okay? So you're going to be using a list for this. I'll repeat again. This will not save in the database. We're going to be saving in the database assignment 3. Assignment 3 is pretty much about that. Save not in memory, but save in the database, okay? So assignment 2, we will not save in the database, okay? Let me see if there's any tricky part here. So aside from the view, the partial view, things should be simple to understand here. I'm not saying that they will be simple to get done, but it should be simple to understand. Okay? As you go through it, let me know if you have any questions. But now, again, you have to create a recipe model. You have to create a layout that will be shared. You have to create a repository. Okay? This you can use as a reference. Part invites. Part invites is doing that. It's not saving the data in the database. It's saving the data in a list. I think it's in a list. So you can use that as a reference point. Part invites. Okay? Great. So that's assignment. Now for next class, we're going to do something similar to what we did for this class. You're going to go to chapter 9. Yeah, question?
Oh, sorry. You said you mentioned
About?
shared layout.
Shared layout, yes?
Is that also needed for assignment 1?
No, it's not. Okay, it's not needed yet. It's going to be, yep.
Go up the slides for the partial view.
Can I what?
Put up the slides or any videos
For the partial view?
Yeah, partial view.
I mean ahead of time, you mean? Okay, actually, partial view. Okay, so here's the thing. The slides that I have are this one for the presentation here. now you have the video for partial view. It's part of chapter 8. So if you look at let me see here. If I go to week 4, if I go to the playlist there, see partial view. I think it's towards the end there. Let's see here. Yeah, actually it's the very last one. Chapter 8, creating a partial view. Okay? Okay, so in terms of what we're going to be doing for next class, going to go now to chapter 9. Chapter 9, have a look at videos 1, 2, 3, 4, 3 questions, submit them. Now, the next set is not bonus related. Okay? So you're going to read, just going to upload them. But again, it's not worth bonus at this time. We're going to be getting bonus in the next one, but for this one, we're just going to, there is an activity folder to be submitted, but it's not graded, it's not bonus. You can submit there, but it's not graded at all. Details are there. Details, you can see those links as well under week number 5 on the Centennial, where it says next class, week 5, chapter 9 activity. Here's the playlist. Have a look at 1, 2, 3, 4, and yeah. Any questions about that? Okay, so let's have a look. Oh, actually, I think there is a question here that I answered, but just want to mention that someone asked, what kind of code should I put into the program class, and what kind of code should I put into the startup class? It's a fair question. Both of them are what I would call the plumbing of your application. You usually don't code too much there. You just use them to set things up. Mostly, you're going to be doing things on the startup, not so much on the program class. Program class is basically just activating the web application for us. Very few things we need to take care there. You just did the main one today, which was to add this line of code there. You changed this thing here. That's it. So to be quite honest, I don't think that we'll be visiting program.cs anymore. We're going to be visiting startup.cs quite a lot, because there is where you configure the plumbing of your MVC application. Here, we are just creating a web application, but that's it. We use this very, very little. The program, very, very little. Okay? Okay, so let's go to our presentation there. And let's see here. Okay, so I'm going to unpack this first, then I'm going to jump to the code, okay? So for us to implement our entity framework product repository, this is the one that will connect the repository that we're going to connect to the database, okay? So we need something that we can use to interact with the data, because here the data is here as well. It's a fake repository. It's a repository of of hard-coded information. Now the data is not here. The data is somewhere outside of our application. The data is part of a database. So this guy here needs to access a database, but it doesn't know how to access the database yet. So we're going to be creating this other piece. We're going to create this application DB context. I'm not going to go in details about that yet, but think about this as your bridge to the database. It's how our repository will be able to reach the database, to get data or to send data to the database. This is, again, a bridge between what? Between the data and the database and our repository in memory. Those repositories, those are representations of, in this case here, representation of the data that is in the database. in memory. It's in memory representation. So again, we need to retrieve this data from somewhere, and we need to know how to access that data. We're going to explore this now. Application DB context. When you hear this word context, is again building a bridge between our repository and the actual repository in the database. This is a bit confusing at times, but the code that goes on here is not that large, it's not that much. Now, our application DB context, it will be using Entity Framework to be able to connect to the database. So we use a set of libraries called Entity Framework, provided by Microsoft, provided by .NET Core, that will allow us to reach the database. So this guy here will connect to Entity Framework. Entity Framework is outside of our model because it's a library that is provided to us to be used. This we create. This we don't create this. We use it. We use it to send data to the database, to retrieve data from the database. We use this framework, this set of libraries, to be able to do that, communicate with the database, send information or receive information, update information. And then Entity Framework will connect to the database. That's where the data is stored. That's who will connect. Now, here's the thing. Entity Framework is one database approach, one set of libraries that access the database, but there are many out there. There are many available. This one is the one nowadays very used, but there are other types. There is something called ADO.NET. There are many other types. Actually, I would highly recommend that you check this video. Actually, it's just 4 minutes, so I may have a look at this. But that's why we should use as well. That's another reason why you can have multiple repositories. Because today, you may say, you know what? Yes, Entity Framework is great. I love it, performs well. Or maybe you say, you know what? Let me try another framework or another way to access the data. What you just need to do, you just need to create another repository that will access that data. The application, the rest of the application is the same. We don't change anything. We just change in one place that instead of using EF product repository, we're going to use another repository. Okay? But this is how we can make our application very loosely tied. The components are not mixed together. We can break them apart easily and rebuild the different components the way we want. In this case here, the application was initially using a fake repository. Now we created a real repository. We went to one line of code to make the change. Nothing in the view, in the controller, had to change. Nothing. Just one place. Imagine that you have an application with 20, 30 controllers, with hundreds of views. We don't have to change all of that just because we change the database. We go to one place and we make the change. Okay? That's why this is called dependency injection, because if the controller was aware of this directly, we are not making them independent that much. Dependency injection is when in a very, in one location, I can create the dependency there. Yes, I'm injecting dynamically the dependency there in one single line of code. And in one single line of code, I can change that. And now the data is no longer stored in the database. The data is stored in a JSON file. Maybe I can have a JSON product repository that stores in a JSON file. Okay? So very easily you can change your storage approach. Okay? Okay. Let's have a look at the code. So Okay, so I have a set of steps, and I don't want to skip any of them, so I have a cheat sheet. Great, so we have here, we have our step number 4 application, where this is a starting point. Let's start with, let me see here. Okay, let's activate the entity framework. Entity framework gets activated by adding a reference in the project in our project. So if you go to the project, if you right click, and if you go to Edit Sports Store, over there you have this line of code that we have added. This line of code will make entity framework available to our application. There are many versions of entity framework. The one that we are using here that is compatible with this version of .NET Core, we are using 2.03. This is not super important. Most likely we could use a Neo one and it would work exactly the same. But we are using this particular version here of the entity framework. So by doing that, we make entity framework available to our project. Okay? So we do that manually. This is a .NET console CLI. What is it again? Command line interface. That's why we can use some of the commands that you are asked to use. So first thing, we add entity framework by doing this. Then let's have a look at our application. So before we jump to our entity framework products, let's work on this context here, on this database context, application DB context. Again, this is the bridge between our repository and the database. Well, more specifically, it's a bridge with entity framework, because entity framework is really the one that knows how to, to talk to the database. So, let's see here. Let's have a look at our application DB. Okay. So we have application DB context inheriting from DB context. This is a class available from entity framework. You see here, Microsoft Entity Framework Core. So this class inherits from, our new class inherits from this class, which comes from the Entity Framework Core. This is the, again, bridge to the database. Now, I'm not going to focus on every single detail here. I just want to mention that there is a constructor of our new class, which is basically calling base options. What is base here? Who can tell me what is that base means? The class that it inherits from. So which constructor is it calling here? The constructor of DB context. So look, this constructor is not doing much. It's just sending whatever options it has collected, it's sending back to the DB context. By the way, which options are we collecting here? Well, basically one set of options, of configuration. We are sending to it the connection string. You're going to see that in a second, but the connection string is a big string that tells me exactly where the database is located. It gives me the database name, it gives me the server, it gives me any security policy like username, passwords that I may need to access that database. Okay? Where is that located? Well, that string is located in the app settings. App settings is where we store the information, not only for database, but I'll give you an example. If you, last week I was working with a client's project that we needed to connect with a service called Stripe. Stripe, anyone has ever heard of Stripe? Stripe is a payment gateway. So they need us to provide a key that is unique for each and every client. So we can store that key here as well. But right now, for our sake here, we are just storing the database connection string. What does it have? The server name. We are using the LocalDB database. LocalDB is a trimmed down, smaller SQL Server database that comes with Visual Studio. Okay? So this is the database that we are storing. It's saying LocalDB because it's locally through your computer. And this is the default name. Most likely all your computers are set up like this. It may vary a little bit, but most likely this is it. You can see the database by going to View, SQL Server Object Explorer. You can click there. May take a little bit to load. But then, in my case, I have three servers there. This is the one that I'm interested. So if I expand this, I'm going to drop. See, I have run this before, so it has created that for me. I'm going to drop that. So you see the name of the service right here. LocalDB / MSSQL LocalDB. This is my server. This is the name of my local database server. That's what you see as the first parameter in the connection string right here. See? Then the second one is you have the database name. Our database name is called Sports Store. Then the third one, we have trusted connection equals to true. It just means that it's going to use my username and password from my work here, from my workstation, as the credentials to log to this database. Okay? Sometimes you have username and passwords if it's not a trusted connection. And then this one here is just to allow multiple connections to the database, but it's not super relevant. The point is that in this app settings.json, it's where we store our database connection. Be very mindful how you write the names of these entries, because if you write the wrong name, it won't be able to connect to the database. It will say, hey, I cannot find this database. So in our case, we have data, we have sports store products, and connection string. That is used in the startup program. We're gonna get there in a second. I just want to mention how you create this app settings. You go to the project if you don't have one yet, right click, go to add, new item, and then from here you should be able, under ASP.NET Core, you should be able to see JSON file. No, where is it? Okay, let me expand here ASP.NET. Here it is, app settings file. You see the name? App settings 1, because there is already one created, .json. I'm not going to create this one, but what you want is, you want this file to be called exactly like this, app settings.json. With that name, it will know that whenever we need a configuration, I can find that configuration there. Okay. Okay, so let's see which components we have. We have the application. Okay, so let's have a look at our new repository. Entity framework repository. Okay, so as before, as the fake one, it inherits from my product repository. I have a context inside of it, because now this repository will need to connect to the database. Who provides that? Well, this is the guy. This is the guy, application DB context, that provides the connection. So if it provides the connection to here, I need to have access to it. For me to have access to it, I declare just a private application DB context. And here, what is this? What is that? Is that a property, a function, a method? What is that? Come on. Constructor. Okay, so it's a constructor because, again, no return type and the name matches the class name. Now, this constructor, it has a parameter, which is our guy, our new friend. It has the application DB context as a parameter. Now, here's the thing. Who creates that? Who is creating that for us? At which point is that created? Well, if we have a look at the controller, when the controller gets created, the controller needs a repository. So here, MVC is doing that for us. That's why MVC can be confusing, but it's actually much simpler than us knowing everything that's going on. We just need to know that product controller gets created by MVC when we call the URL. At the same time, MVC, when it calls product controller, it injects here. That's why dependency injection. It injects here the right repository. In this case, right now, with the code that I show you, which repository it's using right now? So far, which repository, if I run this code, which repository will be displayed here, will be created here? The fake one. We didn't change that yet, so the fake one gets created. Now, when we change to the real one, and we're going to change that. Actually, let's do that. Let's go to the startup. And instead of fake repository, I'm going to say EF. Now, all of a sudden, we are using now the real repository. Now, when this gets created, when the entity framework repository gets created, it needs an application DB context to be added here. So we know the context of the database. We know how to connect to the database. Where is that created? Well, for that to happen, we need to go to our startup class, and we need to do a few things here. Let me ask you this. From what you have seen so far, we have the connection string to the database right here in this file, but we did not code yet how to get that information. So my question to you is, based on the exercise that you have gone through, how do I get that string from app settings? How do I get that? How do I find this guy here? Well, I need that. At appdb, someone has to give the connection string to the database to appdb context, because it does know it. By itself, it does not know where's the database. So someone needs to provide it. Hey, here's the address. You can think about the database connection as a unique address to that database. But it does not know that yet. We have to give to it. Where do we give that? Well, we're going to give that in the startup. So based on the code that you have done, how do I start to move towards the direction of getting this information? How do I start here? What's my next step here? We have the configuration. We need the configuration. Configuration is the one that will allow us to read the information inside app settings. Again, we need a configuration object to be able to read this information. The configuration object will read this, and it will give to the application DB context, so we can bridge to the database. How are we going to do that? Well, we're going to write in the startup class, we're going to write, I think it's a public, I think it could be private, but that's okay. A public configuration. I think that this is a, let me see here. Yeah, this is an I configuration, I think. Let me see here. Yeah, and we need to add a reference. So again, for me to use this I configuration, which is an interface, I need to add the configuration namespace. Okay, so we have that. This is, yeah, I think this is, let me, I just want to make sure. Okay, actually it's a property, so we have to use a get here. So it's a read-only, yeah, it's a read-only property. Okay, now here's the thing. Here we have again, you're gonna see so much of this kind of scenario. Eventually, you're gonna get used to it. You see, configuration is an I configuration. It's an interface. We cannot use configuration right now because configuration is just an interface. We have to give a concrete class. Whenever we declare something as an interface, for us to be able to use it, we have to make it concrete. We have to set it to a concrete class. How we do that here? Well, we're gonna use a constructor of startup. So we're gonna say something like this. Public startup. It's gonna have a parameter of the type I configuration. And I'm gonna call this conf. This is an input parameter. And then I'm gonna say configuration, which is of the type I configuration, equals to conf. Now this is confusing. Again, not just this. Everything, I guess everything is confused. But look, this is a constructor, okay? Who builds this startup? Who builds controllers? Who builds startups? Who builds all of that? MVC. MVC is building those things for us. It's giving that to us. Now, when MVC sees that the startup is expecting a parameter of I configuration, it sends a real one with dependency injection behind the scenes. We don't see that. We just trust that it's doing this. It's his job, you know, its job. But when startup gets created, it sends a concrete configuration. We set our configuration to the concrete one, and now via this configuration, we have access to read the contents of app settings. This is just a class or a property that will give us access to the contents of app settings. That's why we have that, just to access this. Now, why do we access this? Because we want the connection string. We want to be able to connect to the database. Then we keep going here. So we're going to add another line of code here. I'm going to, because again, I really don't store this in my brain matter. So we're going to call services again. Services is the collection of services available to our application. We call add DB context, and we are sending as a parameter our DB context here, which is this guy. Okay, what this is doing, again, this is all part of dependency injection. We are saying, hey, whenever you need an application DB context, I'm going to give you one, a concrete one, but just one. I'm just going to give you one. This is different from the add transient because we are using an interface here. Here, we are using a concrete object already. So it creates one app DB context for the entire application. That's why we're using it. Now, the second part here, we are just setting the options. Remember that I said when we are creating an app DB context, we have a parameter called options. You see options here? And I said that options, we are giving the connection string to it. And we are giving it right now. So you see options, we are saying use SQL Server. So we are saying, hey, we have a SQL Server database here. And you see the squirrely line there? It's just because we're missing a reference. If I'm able to get to that. So Entity Framework Core, we're going to add that to the top. And now we should be OK. Now, here's the thing. We are using this method, use SQL Server. This method expects the string, the connection string. And this is how we get to the connection string. We call configuration, which is our class here. Our property, configuration, we call it. And we say, hey, give me the string that is inside of data, sports or products, in connection string. So look at the hierarchy here. By the way, I think that the author made this a little bit too complicated. It could be simplified. I usually would do just 2 levels here, data and connection string. But anyway, I followed closely what the book was given as an example. So what happens a lot is that you misspell one of the names, so you cannot connect to the database. You put a space, you cannot connect. So you have to say specifically data, column, sports store products, column, connection string. It has to match those 3 arguments. So this is what we do here. We say, go to the data, go to the data key, go to the sports store product key, go to the connection string. It's like we're giving the address inside of the JSON file. This whole thing will return that string. We'll return this. And this is how we create our application DB, and we give the connection string to it. Hey, give me one application DB, and here is the connection string. Okay, let me reconnect. Let me stop here for a second and give you a chance to, I guess, digest this a little bit better. I said it's going to be a lot, but the good thing is that once you get the plumbing part, I call this plumbing. Once you get the plumbing part correct, it's just a matter of creating models, creating views, creating controllers, creating actions. This is plumbing. If you are coding on a daily basis, you are not necessarily putting all of this in place every single day. You put this once, okay, here's the connection string, that's it. Now it's time for me to focus on higher level parts of the application. This startup and program classes, those are the plumbing parts of the application. I cannot say that they are not important, they are important, but you deal with them once. And now you get to the database, now you're going to focus your development efforts in more high-level aspects of the application, like creating views, creating tables. But again, this is necessary to be able to hook up. It's like, you can think about this as as I'm saying, the plumbing of your house. They need to be in place, but they are placed once. Then you start to beautify your house, to build your house on top of that. But you do the plumbing once, okay? Okay, so let me see what else there. Let's go to the diagram here. Let's see where are we. So we have this connection. Okay, we did explore. We did not explore this yet. Let me see if this makes sense. Yeah. So let's have a look at our Migration, no migration. Yeah, this is the one. So let's have a look at our real entity framework product repository. Okay, yeah, so we were there. So I was just unpacking this. How do we get this context? Again, context is our bridge to the database. Now, look, the fake repository products, well, they were hard-coded. In our real one, in our real repository, products are coming from where? From the context, which is our connection to the database, dot products. What is that doing? Well, let's go to the application DB context. See, here's what we have. We have a data set, because remember, application DB context is connected to the database. So now we have a collection that is called DB set. It's a database set called products. This this line is very important. Very important. Why? Because you see, we have products plural. So when we run our migration scripts, which you're going to do in a second, its framework is so smart that it will say, you know what? This is your DB context. Okay, so the tables of my database, the new one, must be listed here somewhere. This is the table. This is a products table, which each entry will be a product. So when we are generating the migration scripts, its framework will read our context. Remember that some of you had a problem with the DB context. This is it. So it will say, hey, you have a DB set here. What is the name of the table is products, and each entry in your table is a different product. Okay? If you have, let's say, students, so you have a student class and a student's DB set. So again, its framework will read this and will assume, okay, so I better create a table called products. And each entry will be a product, okay? Actually, I think that we should run now. Let me see, just make sure. Great, yeah. Let's run the migration script. Actually, let me pause for a second here. Again, I blessed so much that, come on, give you something back here. I told you, see, I foresee the future. I told you that you're going to be staring at this with blank faces at some points. This is it. This is the moment. Go ahead, Shane.
So the DB set, it creates like a table in the database?
Yes.
Products, so then you could DB set other stuff to make other tables?
Yes. Yes, if you have more models, you can have, as I said, products model, a categories models. Let's say that you have a category of products here. So you could have a public DB set category, and then call it categories. Its framework will create now products in categories for us. I don't know. I see. We are not going to create the tables manually. Its framework will do that for us. Traditionally, I've never done that in my past life, before MVC, before Int framework. I had to create my own tables. I had to create my fields. I had to make sure of that. Here, Int framework will do that for us. And I'm going to show how to do that now. Okay, so first thing, before we want to run the scripts, before we try to run the command line script, the command line command, I need to make sure that one, everything is saved in my project, and two, I'm able to build my project. So go to build, click rebuild solution, and see if there are any errors. You can see the errors in the output screen or in the error list. Okay, in the output, you see, 1 succeeds, 0 failed. Great. All good. It succeeded. Now, I need to get the location of my project. I'm going to open in Windows Explorer. I'm going to right-click the address. Now, if you are running this in a different drive, first you enter to that drive. Let me go to the command line here first. Let's say in mine it's showing C column. If I have another drive, you're going to say D whatever, F whatever. Okay? First you enter in that drive, then you can say CD, right-click, and then you paste the path to the folder. We are in the folder of the project. Now we type in. Come on, help me out here. .NET, what? The command. EF, migrations. Oops. Migrations. Then add initial. Now, I want to bring this to your attention. Initial is not a keyword, okay? Initial is just the name that you are giving to the initial set of migration scripts, okay? It could be any name. Now, let's unpack. What do we understand about migration? What is migration? If you think about migration, forget about code for a second. What is a migration? Moving something from one place to another one. In this case here, it's not so much of a migration because we are not moving, but we are creating scripts to create the database. Create the database for us. Okay? So look at this. I'm going to go to the folder. We don't see yet a folder called migrations here. When I hit enter here, it will start to create a set of classes for us. Those classes, don't worry about the warning. To be honest, only worry about stuff here if you see red. Red, not good. Yellow, good. Green, good. Okay? Yellow, don't care too much about that right now. It's a warning. It's no big deal, okay? But I can tell you, red is bad, okay? Now, this is the folder. You see the new folder we just created? Migrations. Let's have a look inside. See, this is where the initial comes, you know? Initial is set here as the name of the class that we have created that will perform the scripts to migrate. Just want to open this. Not that you need to know that, but look here. It's saying, hey, this is the table name. These are the fields of my table. See, SQL Server. We have an int here. We have a string here. We have another string, a decimal, another string, and we have a primary key. Even primary key. Nowhere we said what is a primary key. Anyone with some knowledge of database? Primary key is it's what? It's a field that is the primary key.
Identifies the record.
Identifies the record, yeah, uniquely, in a unique way. So one primary key, the primary key is unique in a table. So even that, it's assuming. See, I didn't say that. But it's assuming that product ID is the unique field just because of the name. Because I put an ID in the name of the field, of the property, it assumes that. Sometimes correctly, sometimes incorrectly. If it was not that clear, I could flag, let's say, product code. I don't want to use product ID, product code. Okay, how does it know that product code is the primary key? Then we have to flag that field as a key. Not for now, but I just wanted to briefly open that and show you around what it's doing. Okay, so what's next? In the video, it does not show a second command line. It just shows this one here. But I want to show you a second one. The second one that I'm going to show is a command line that will create the database for us. It will create the database, it will create the table, it will create the fields, Okay? The next command, and by the way, I can go to my application. Let me see here. Sorry, there. Okay, so if you go to, just to prove that there is no database created yet, I'm going to go to View, SQL Server Object Explorer. This is where you can connect to the database. Oh, it's already open here. So you see LocalDB is here. I can expand this, and let me just refresh the database just to make sure. Nothing there. There's no sport store created yet. Okay, so now I'm going to run this other command. So .NET EF, I think it's database, let's see here. Okay, database update, okay, database update. So what this command will do, it will read the migration scripts that we created in the first command, and it will create the database according to that script. It knows the database name, it knows the table name, it knows the field's name. Okay, I'm going to hit enter here. And okay, some warnings again, but nothing red there. That's good. You have to wait until you see the command prompts again. Then you know that this is done. Now, let me go back to the database. I still don't see anything here, but let me refresh. There we go. So we have a database. We have the tables. Wait a second. The table. This one here is just some related to the migration scripts. Leave it there. Don't mess around with that one. Product, columns. Look at this. We have product ID, name. Let's have a look at our repository there. Sorry, our model. See? Product ID, name, description, price, and category. We have each and every property listed here. Okay? Done for us automatically. Okay, so let me see here. Something that I see happening with some students, sometimes you make change to the model, but you forget to run the scripts again. You forget to regenerate them. Whenever you are in a position that you are running the application and it's disconnected from the database, they have different structures. You can always drop your database. You can say delete, right click there, close connections, delete the database. You can also delete the migrations folder. Migration is gone. Now, I can run this again. I can say migrations again. Actually, let's do a minor change here. Let's say I no longer want category. I want category type. So I can save this. I can run the migrations again. And then I can run the database update again. By the way, in the command line, you can use page up to go back to a previous command that you have typed in. Okay. And then we are done. And now if I refresh there, I'll see my database back. Here's the database, tables, and products, and columns. And now I have a new category type here. Okay, so you can always delete and recreate. I'm going to go back here. And I'm going to do this for actually here's what I want to do. I want to show you this. When you do a change like this, you don't have to drop everything. You can run another set of scripts. You can say, hey, I run initial before, but now I want to create a new set called second. So you're going to create a second set of scripts, and this time it will generate scripts just with the difference between the initial setup and the new one. Look at the migration scripts now. See, we have second here. If we open that, we're going to see that we have a rename column from this name to this name. And then we can update the database once again with the new changes. Okay, I'm done with this one. Okay, now what? What am I missing here? What is the next step here in our journey to get this running? What should I do now? Seed data. So let's do it. What's the goal? What's the point of the seed data? Populate just with some initial data. Né? You know what? You will most likely benefit from that. Seed data is just a class that will load the database with some information. So I don't have to type in manually that. Okay? So you're going to use that. Again, normally you don't have a seed data, but seed data is just there to give us a hint and put some data there in the database for us. So I'm going to create a new class called seed data. And to save a bit of time, I'm going to copy, but I'm going to explain what's going on here. Okay, so what is that? Well, again, it's just a support object. I'm making this static because I don't need to instantiate objects of this type. And I'm creating a static method void that will be the one that we're going to call to create the data in our database. Initially, I need a context object to point to the database. How do I get that? Well, this ensure populated will have a parameter called iApplicationBuilder. We call it app because from where we're going to create it, we're going to call it from the startup. And then at the very bottom, we're going to say seed data dot ensure populated. We're going to send this app. This app will give us access to the database context. Oops. App. So again, no, this is wrong. Okay. Let me Control Z here. Okay. App. Okay, so I'm calling the ensure populated method from seed data with the app builder as my parameter. App builder is just give me here to the seed data the context. I'm getting app.applicationservices.getRequiredService long line here just to return the context. Now, I'm doing a few other things. Look at this line. This line is running the migration scripts. So if I did not want, actually, I don't have it open anymore. Let me go here once again. I'm just going to go inside the folder. If I did not want to write this, this command, it's going to create the database. But this line of code here also creates the database, okay? So it was just a choice from the book author to create the database via a line of code instead of using the command line, okay? Because of this particular line, this is the reason why you had to go to program and make that modification right here. Because otherwise, this line won't work, okay? So we make this minor change. No, not startup, program. Okay, we add this line. Without this line, this migration here would not work. So I'm just going to add that to the program. And we are fine here to go. Okay, so let's look at the seed data again. Let's run this. Let's put this for a spin, because we are coding here forever without running. I really don't like that. Let's rebuild things here. Let's run this. So look at the products now. Those products are now coming from the database, okay? But they were populated initially by the seed data. So let's look at the seed data. Let's start with the if there. What is this doing? Who can tell me what is that about?
If there's any items in the database.
And then doing what?
And if there isn't, then it's adding those ones.
So let me ask you this. What is this going to return? Just this part here. What is it?
It's going to return the products in the scope.
Yeah, go ahead. Okay, let's look again. Let's see the syntax here. What data type is this returning? Just this part here. Is that a string? Is that an integer? What is this? True or false? It's a true or false. So, if this is true, what does it mean?
Don't do this.
In which, yeah, there's product, because I'm using the negative, okay? So it means that if it's true, make it false, because there are products. The point is that I don't want to be running this every time that I run the application. I'm creating more products. No, I just want to populate once. So this test is just to avoid every time I run the application, it creates more products. I don't want that. So that's the goal of this test. We use context, which is our bridge to the database. We go to the products table. We say, hey, are there any products there? If it's yes, this becomes negative, and we jump this. If it's no, it becomes true, and we go through this. We use the add range to add a set of products, and at the very end, we call save changes from the context to apply this to the database. Because if we don't do this, if we don't have this line, the products will be added, but just in memory, just in the memory repository, not in the database. When I call this, every single change that was done, which changes were those? We added products. They will get all flushed out to the database and update the database. That's it. It's easy peasy. Yes. About the Ent framework, yep, go ahead.
I've heard active framework is actually slower than normal, like just normal SQL type of query. So
Normal. Okay, so great. Create another repository that uses the fast one. Again, there are people that are proponent to use Ent framework. Some people are not proponent to that. Again, that's fine. So you can test that. You can test if you want to use another approach, create another repository, make another connection. Instead of using this application DB, use another one to whatever framework or approach. I mean, the popular one of up to a few years ago was ADO.NET. Maybe it's more efficient. I really don't have concrete material to be able to say, yeah, don't use Ent framework, use this other one. I can tell you this. Yeah, depending on how critical is the application, I can tell you this. The people that I know of that work in bank, in finance, in retail, they use that quite a lot. Okay? Now, again, on the web, you're going to find people that are pros and cons about things. That's okay. But again, the good thing is that I'm giving you the tools that now you can say, let me try this with another approach. Let's forget about the Ent framework. Let's use something else here. And then you can change this. Okay? And keep the rest of it, the rest of the application, all the same. Okay, so here, let me see if I'm missing anything here. 1 second. See it? No, we're good. So here's what I like to do. I'd like you to take 5 minutes just to, and that's for your own use. You don't need to upload, you don't need to do anything with that. Write down some of your notes about what we have gone through today. Because here's the thing. The moment you step out of this room, you're going to forget this. Okay? So write a few notes down. Take 5 minutes just to write some of them. Consult me, ask me any questions, but take 5 minutes for that. After 5 minutes, go with your neighbor there, exchange notes. Look at his or her notes, you look at your notes, you exchange that. The point is, let's see what we can do so something sticks around before we leave this class today. Okay? So let's take 5 minutes for that, for the first part.
So you're using like JavaScript and
yeah, JavaScript and actually I'm using
just a bit on the command line. You're saying that if we do the migrate thing,
It's the seed. Yeah, in the seed.
so if we do
The migrates.
the migrate, then we don't have to do
The second one.
Okay.
It will create for us.
Okay, so we don't gotta go into the command line and do all that stuff.
Not for the second command, but the first one is still necessary. The first one that created the migration scripts.
Yeah.
This one will run the migration scripts.
Yeah.
It does not create the migration scripts.
Oh, okay.
So the first one is still necessary.
There's no way around that first one.
I don't know. To be honest, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Because here's the thing. We are creating those classes. So I really don't see a way to create them dynamically. Because those are physical files.
Yeah.
How do you create them and compile them? Because this is all compiled code. So I don't see that happen. There might be. Again, this thing is so comprehensive that there might be one. But I don't see how. I don't see how those files get created and they get compiled. But the compilation is already gone.
I figured out us.
No.
But
It makes sense. No, it makes sense. And I would like to know that as well. I would like to have a firm understanding of can it be done, because then we could have added there as well. I'll check that. You're not the only one asking that. There were more. I'm gonna write a note of that, to be honest.
my notes, and it's like I have so many things written down. Yeah, give me so much of these to read. I feel like I need to create a That's why I really have this one do recommend 15 weeks. So I know I'm not gonna look at it and be like, I don't know what I wrote, but I can refer to it correctly.
Know why I decided to start creating videos? Not for classes, but actually years ago I started to create tutorials because for my own use. Because I got to a point in talking about the technology that I was working with, that I went to Google, I searched something, and I found my own posts. I found my own stuff. Because I don't keep, again, that's why I like tutorials, I like video, because I can always follow those steps. No?
I have a friend of one of the classes for UNEP, and I've noticed whenever he takes notes, whenever there's something that's done specifically, he'll always just take a screenshot. Just crop it,
Screenshots.
and he has like this big Word document with like the whole lecture, and it's just to remind himself how to do it. And I always think, I want to do that, but I know I'm going to be too slow at taking those screenshots. I'm going to look back, and I'll be like, wait, we're doing what now?
That's an interesting approach. Yeah, that's good.
But it's basically our version of having a video.
Got it.
But I love to do it. Whenever I see them in class doing stuff, if I'm forgetting something, I'll just look over and be like, so what was this one again? I'll just scroll. I'm like, yeah. It's like, yay.
Okay, so if you want to share with your partner there, a friend, your notes, again, go ahead. Let's do that.
Can you check is it enough? Like just go within.
Okay. Okay. So show me the home page. Navigate for me. Okay. So show me the home page. Okay. So recipe list. Okay.
The other list.
Okay. Okay. Good. So show me the recipe list.
They don't have it. Oh yeah. Because I already. If I didn't add,
Okay.
it's nothing.
Okay. Okay. So that's the reason why I keep saying it's hard coded, because you can hard code the list of recipes in the view. In the view, you can go to the list view, and add the hard coded HTML for the list. For the
So I should put some list
in HTML. HTML itself. That's because then you can see the list. Yeah, that's what I've been trying to say. Well, you need the action. You need the list action. You don't need to store the data, but you need the actions because you need to navigate. If you don't have actions, you won't be able to navigate. Some data. Yeah, you don't need to store the data.
언니가 물어보면 그렇게 대답하는 거 같은데. 아니 넣고 어디도 하는 거지. 거기다 어디도 하는 거지.
Okay, so anyone brave enough to share with us some of your notes, some of your takeaways, some of your points there? Anyone? Go ahead.
If you don't have the use default service provider with the validate scope equals false, then the startup won't work.
Okay, And that's specific for the migrations, the migrations commands. Yep. Okay, good. Good takeaway. Anybody else?
Enumerable bring all the data.
What's that?
The enumerable.
Yeah, enumerable.
Data.
Okay.
The equerable only brings what?
The filtered data. Awesome. That's a good one too. Okay, so before I let you guys go, let me just mention this. As I said, you see, what we talk about here is just videos 4 and 5. We spent pretty much the whole class, but I said we're going to be focused on the most important aspect. To me, chapter 8 is about understanding the database. Now, I don't know what's stick around in your heads there, hopefully a little bit. But if you want to go in depth with all the videos from chapter 8, that's great, go for it. Okay? It's fine. And come back to me with questions. That's okay, I'm going to assist you. If you don't want to do that, that's fine as well. I will be uploading to Centennial all the steps. Step 4, it's already there. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14. If you want to jump to anyone in particular, you can on your own. Okay? Now, again, count on me if you want support on that, if you have questions about that. But I'm not gonna, it's not feasible for me to go line by line of codes. Just look at this. Look where we are. Okay? We just covered a few things. So there is space in this class for you if you want to go deeper into that. There's also space if you don't. But if you don't, what I talk about here is the very minimum that will be in assignments. I'm saying the minimum. It's the necessary that will be in assignments, that will be in the tests. So you will be okay with what I covered here. Now, the rest, I'm not going to be asking for a detailed line of code that is on page 225 in the footer notes. No, I'm not going to ask for those things. But I'm going to ask for the topics that I cover here verbally, and you have the chance to interact with me and ask questions. Again, there's a place, if you want just to focus on the key aspects that I'm talking about, there's a place if you want to go deeper and want to ask me questions about that. There's a place for everybody, okay? Hope that this makes sense. What else we have here? I think that's about it. Remember the assignment 1. Remember what we have for next class. I think I had something else. Anyway. Yeah, I think that's it. Let's go in peace. Have a great weekend, okay? And I'll see you all next week. Thank you. Thank you. You too.
There's lots of questions.
Lots of questions.
Yeah.
I'm going to answer the questions.
Okay. So that's the first page, which only allows us to add the recipe or view recipe list. So when we click on add recipe, we can go back to home page, and there's still just these 3, and then just regular submit. So when I click submit list, do you want me to stay on the same page, or do you want me to do
Go to where it was before, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And so when we go on recipe list, so that's the table.
Those are hard-coded. Those are hard-coded or dynamic? Hard-coded, isn't it?
Hard-coded, yeah.
In the HTML.
Yeah, in the HTML.
Okay. Recipe
So-
name.
And then we can review that recipe as well. So I'll go back. I just want to ask one thing. So this is my list of recipes. When I click any of the recipe, it shows the same view. There's just this one recipe detail.
Okay.
That is associated with each and every.
I get it. Yep.
And
That's
then
okay.
from this,
Yep.
we can go to home page, we can add recipe, or we can go back to recipe list.
Okay.
And if I viewed this recipe, now I can review this recipe if I want. and then it allows me to review all the recipes that were there in the recipe list.
It should allow to review that recipe.
that recipe?
That recipe. Okay? But again, think of this as also another static page
Okay.
that you can. You're welcome. That you can review that particular one recipe, not all of them.
Okay.
Again, remember what you experienced when you are reviewing a product in Amazon. When you review a product in Amazon, you're gonna review one product, not all, not.
Okay, so in the review list, do I need to have only
Review
one?
list. There is no review list.
No, not review recipe. Do I need to have just the name of that recipe, or do I need to like do add R from the from wherever the from the recipe list?
Formulate that question again, because I didn't get.
So when I go to recipe list,
Yes.
I click on one recipe.
Yes.
And then I get the details of that recipe.
Yes.
And then I review that recipe.
Click on the button.
Yeah,
Review
that
recipe.
recipe.
Yeah.
And then it shows me the title of the same recipe that I clicked on the first.
Yeah, but again, the review recipe can be hard coded as well. So
Okay.
don't worry about I
Can
clicked
the
it.
title be for the every review
Yes.
recipe with the same? Oh,
Yes,
okay,
it can.
Okay.
Now, my recommendation is that don't have just a drop down there. Have a comments field as well.
Okay.
When I review, I say 5 stars, 4 stars, 8 stars, 3 stars, and I say, here's my comments.
Yeah,
So
okay, so I'm going to include a comment box and then a drop down list as well. Do I need to have both?
a drop down list to do what? Should they
To just have, did you love it, or do you think that it can be made more tasty? If they click that it can be more tastier, then I can get a comment box, your recommendation.
No need for that. But I would recommend this. In the drop down, give it at least 5 options. You can say stars, or
I
you can
have stars?
you can have stars.
Okay.
And then, independent of what they select, have a comments or feedback
Okay.
box
Okay.
that the person can enter more stuff.
So I don't have to have the whole list for review recipe. I just need
No.
to have that one that is associated with each of the every.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And and when I click on submit, you want us to with the home page, right?
You can go back to. You can go
Recipe
back
list?
to the view recipe. You can go back to where it used to be before, which is the view recipe. You can go back to the view recipe.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So
Now, one thing that I recommend is that I don't see images there.
yeah, I'll definitely.
Okay,
access. I
just
haven't-
make sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay?
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
no problem. So I want to see 100% there then.
Sure.
With all those tips, I mean, no reason why not. Okay, all good. Have a good weekend. Good weekend.